Hey Money Nerds, today we are talking about lifestyle creep, but in your 30s. Hey Money Nerds, today we are talking about lifestyle creep, but in your 30s, which I will be the first to admit is very different than your 20s. So let's go ahead and dive into this episode where we're gonna talk a little bit about lifestyle creep, what it looks like, where it comes from, and more importantly, what you can do to avoid it so that you can get on with your rich self. Okay, here's the thing, lifestyle creep in your 30s, it looks a little bit different. It's got a different flavor than your 20s. In your 20s, it's very much trying to impress, trying to feel like you actually have something to your name. You usually have all of your 20s where you're in college and you're just trying to make an income. And so you finally get to the point where you're in your 30s and you're like, all right, I've got this money. I may have bought the house. I may have the new car. I don't need anything crazy or fancy. I'm just trying to have a better lifestyle than I did when I was in my 20s. Which again, when you're in your 20s and you have no money and you start out in college and then all of a sudden you start to make even $40,000 a year, you're like, oh my God, I made it. Like I've got money now. I can spend. I'm okay. And that is usually when we start to find ourselves getting into a little bit of that first lifestyle creep trap. We start to increase our lifestyle. Maybe we celebrate graduating college, we finance a new car, and then we still get to the point where money might be tight in your 20s. By the time you hit your 30s, you're probably getting pay increases, you're probably job hopping. Your income has likely gone up significantly, but also your obligations in life have probably also gone up significantly. So lifestyle creep in your 20s and 30s is very different. In your 30s, it's not about necessarily luxury cars. It's not about designer bags. And while this can be the case, I usually find that most people that listen to this show and are interested in personal finance, that's not really something that we're always drawn to, but it looks like convenience. In your 30s, lifestyle creep is a lot more convenience-based. It's, I don't have time for this. It's comfort. It's, I deserve this. And suddenly you're earning more money than you ever have, but you have less money that's working towards your future goals. That is lifestyle creep. That is lifestyle creep. Now, I want this episode to be helpful for you. I don't want you to feel a lot of guilt or shame, but I do want it to also be direct and something where you can start to apply and maybe see yourself in some of the examples and have that like really honest conversation with yourself so that you can get better with your finances. So that's why this is going to be all about awareness, not necessarily restriction. You don't necessarily have to change anything. It's more about understanding why you do what you do. And to be fair, almost everybody experiences lifestyle creep in some way. Again, it's about awareness. So let's talk about what lifestyle creep actually is and how we can start to feel more in control without cutting out joy and some of the things that we actually give a crap about. Why does lifestyle creep hit differently in our 30s? Well, I think there's a few different reasons. The first one, income goes up and our expectations start to go up as well. We're in our 30s now, we're adults or should be, and we're starting to figure out that maybe our spending should be reflective of that. Time also becomes so much more valuable when you're in your 30s. I mean, I remember in my 20s, I would be able to go out and drink all night and then go to work and sleep when I got home, no problem whatsoever. Now I've got a kid. That is definitely not happening, nor do I even want that type of lifestyle, but our life is just drastically different. It's not the same. Our time arguably becomes a lot more valuable in our 30s because we, generally speaking, have less of it. Coupled with life being fuller, we have houses, we have careers, we have kids, we have aging parents, we have all kinds of different factors that really do make our life feel so much more full. And so that's why that lifestyle creep is just different in our 30s, but still very prevalent. We also start to see a shift in our 30s versus our 20s. Spending becomes more functional versus just for fun. And lastly, the other reason why lifestyle creep is different in your 30s is because I really do believe that we start to have identity crisis or identity shifts when we become in our 30s. And this is something that we're going to spend a little bit more time into of how these identity shifts really do impact our spending. In your 20s, lifestyle creep is usually about fun. In your 30s, it's about survival. We're tired. What does lifestyle creep actually look like? Let's go ahead and talk about this. Here's some examples that you might resonate with. It's grocery delivery instead of going to the grocery store. And then, of course, we have the impulse add-ons when we're doing the online shopping, which this is my number one tip and also my number one thing that I have to personally watch out for. I love grocery delivery. I love the convenience, but it can be expensive if we're not careful. Freaking Cinnamon Toast Crunch will get you. Ask me how I know. It's more takeout and less cooking because we're exhausted at the end of the day. This is why I'm a big fan of meal prep, but I rest my case. It happens to the best of us. It's looking at your everyday items and trying to find nicer versions of this. This is something I noticed I recently was doing, and it snuck in so gradually that I was like, oh my God, this is lifestyle creep. This is a form of it. It's not detrimental, but it's a form of it. I was looking at my kitchen and I was starting to declutter. We'll talk about that for sure. So I've been decluttering my house, decluttering my kitchen. And one of the things that I started to see is that my dishes in my kitchen, they're fine. I have 4 dinner plates, I have 4 salad plates, I have a couple dessert plates and some bowls. But over the years, it's starting to break. Some things are like getting chipped, and it's old, man. I've had them, I don't even know how long, probably over 15 years. And so I started to look at buying a new dish set. And here's the interesting thing. I didn't just look on Walmart.com or Amazon and just buy functional, cheap, similar plates. No. I started to look at beautiful stoneware ones or ceramic ones or ones that were even better, handcrafted. And that's when I had my moment where I pulled back and I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm talking about all the time. It's not about buying things that you need and replacing things that are actually a need. I mean, I would say plates are probably a need for most people, but it's not even about that. It's about the type of plate I bought. It's upgrading those little everyday things. It's instead of buying the basic Mr. Coffee, what if I buy this $600 espresso maker? It's those little tiny things where it's the everyday stuff that we start to upgrade because we want to feel like we have nicer things. And that is not inherently wrong. It's just important to understand it. It also looks like purchasing subscriptions that we use, but maybe not fully. It's the Amazon purchase, the Amazon membership that we use to save us money on shipping, which inherently, that could be its own episode, is kind of insane if you actually think about it. We're saving money on shipping to get our items faster so that we can spend money. Wild concept. Very, very effective though, right? But there's also other additions to that subscription that we probably aren't using. Are you watching the movies on there? Are you starting to do some free books? There's so many different elements to subscriptions, and the Amazon is just one example, but we do have a lot of subscriptions and we may not be using those to the fullest potential. It's paying for services that we used to DIY. This will be a sad day for me. I love DIY so much. When we get to the point in our life where we're no longer trying to DIY stuff and we're calling someone, that will be a sad day for me. I really think it will be. But that is also services that we could have DIY'd that now we're spending a lot of money for, and it certainly adds up and is a very, very real factor in that lifestyle creep. Okay, the next example, this is one that I have noticed myself. I haven't done it yet, but I've been contemplating it more, and that is having a slightly nicer travel comfort. So for example, instead of buying the basic economy ticket, which I am the queen of that, it's starting to say, but how do I get to business class, and how do I make this so that this could become my new norm? The definition of lifestyle creep, right? For sure. I don't need to buy business class. I would like it, but I don't need to. That's just something that it's starting to look like is, again, more of that convenience and more of that comfort spending. It's also a lot of this justification of saying it's not that expensive, those little purchases stacking up over time and starting to give ourselves almost an out for why it's okay to spend money on that. We see this a lot with the latte factor, which I mean, people like knock on this all the time. I think it's so true. I see a lot of budgets, and one of the things that I do see is it's, yes, death by 1,000 cuts for sure, but it's also like those big things, like it's overpaying for your house or financing too expensive of a car. It's having all of these different elements of our lives that do make it really expensive. But those day-to-day spending, that $7, $8 latte here and there where you're doing that every single day, and then you're getting a pastry, and then you're going out to lunch, and then you're meeting friends for happy hour twice a week. That's the kind of stuff where it's small, but it's also huge. It adds up to be so much money. And so it's not that expensive, those types of mindset. It's not that expensive mindset that will really get you. And lastly, it's aspirational spending. It's spending where we're trying to take on a new identity or change a new identity. This is the stuff where we see this all the time, right? If you start a new business, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm a business owner. And instead of just like running your business, you're like, maybe I should go buy a course. So then you buy a course, and then pretty soon you're like, okay, now I need to get the new desk. I need my home office to be reflective of this new business owner identity. Or you want to start working out. And so you immediately, instead of just going to the gym or going on a run or doing the thing, you go buy all of the new clothes and you start to look online and you get the best shoes and you get the best outfits. Don't forget you need the watch too so you can track your mileage. It's all of that aspirational spending where we're spending to try to get a transformation, and I applaud it. It is just not the most effective way. Whereas instead, if we're trying to be somebody who works out more, just go do the damn workout, right? Don't spend your way to becoming a new identity. That usually doesn't really work well, and it doesn't really provide that true transformation. And so that aspirational spending is such a huge factor when it comes to lifestyle creep. It's something that I guarantee you we have all fallen into, and if you look around your house, you think about your life, we probably all have that. Maybe it's hobbies, maybe it's clothing, books, electronics, like cooking gear, like the list goes on, right? We all have aspirational spending in some capacity. And the key piece here is none of this stuff, when we talk about it, none of it seems irresponsible, at least not at surface level. It seems like it's all very easy, it's all very understandable, and that's kind of part of the problem, is because it is so easy and so just basic stuff, that's what makes it easier to justify, and that's what creates a system of bad behaviors where we aren't really changing anything and we're just adding more crap to our life without getting the extra fulfillment and joy. That's the problem. It's too easy to spend money on convenience, especially in your 30s. So here's what I want you to do. Let's pause for a second and let's do a little reflection. If your income has doubled or increased over the years and your savings or your investments has not proportionally grown, or you look at that and you're like, oh man, I could have did better. I don't know where all my money went. I don't like that I'm making the most money I've ever made, and yet my investing and my savings is negligible. I want you to ask yourself, why is that? What are some things that you can identify in your life, totally unbiasedly, hold yourself accountable here? Where do you think you went wrong? Okay, now that we're done with that, let's start talking about some of the hidden costs of lifestyle creep and why it's so important to get a good hold on this. There is a lot of emotional guilt and shame that comes from lifestyle creep. But there's also some very real financial implications of lifestyle creep too. First and foremost, your savings is going down or just not increasing at all. If your savings rate has started to slow down over the years and you look at your accounts and year over year it's the same amount, not because you have a fully funded emergency fund, because you're not contributing to your savings or your investing, that's a real problem. That is a huge red flag, and that's a good indicator that, all things aside, it's time to dive into your numbers to see, is there any adjustments that you can start to make? Now, emotionally, you probably feel a little bit of guilt. You're probably feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. I make way too much money to be this broke. What's going on here? This doesn't feel right. That's your intuition telling you that you're probably right. Something is wrong and something does need to be addressed. You also might feel a lot of anxiety, like your current lifestyle is great and you love it, but it's really hard to maintain, and that baseline is becoming a lot of stress and anxiety. If you feel like you've almost like built your own house of cards and it's just one card away or one little breeze away from your entire house flopping and one big financial disaster, you're probably right, and that is, again, a good indication that this is not normal and it doesn't have to be this way. But you might also simultaneously feel afraid of going backwards. Like, you've built this incredible life. You have the cool car that's reliable and has heated seats and a sunroof, and it fits all your kids and you're happy with it. And you have the house that maybe it's not your dream home, but it's a great home and people compliment you all the time on it. You might have the wardrobe that is put together and polished, and you're starting to feel like, I'm at a good place. We take vacations as a family. We mostly enjoy our life. I don't really want to go backwards. That's also what makes this lifestyle creep so stressful for so many people, is because it's, once you have a certain baseline in your life, going backwards from that baseline is incredibly hard. It's not impossible, but it's incredibly hard. And you might also be afraid that you're just like losing flexibility. Maybe currently the way you spend gives yourself a lot of, although maybe it shouldn't, but it does, it gives you a lot of that freedom and that flexibility, and you feel like you can say yes more than no, and you like that about that. That's one of the things that gets people in a lot of trouble too, is we don't like to say no to ourselves. I mean, who does? It is so difficult to lose that flexibility and that freedom. And so sometimes that is another one of those hidden costs that we feel like we're gonna have to say no to ourselves, we're gonna have to deprive ourselves. And Ultimately, what I want you to remind yourself of is lifestyle creep inherently on its own. It does not ruin your finances, but it can, but it also quietly reduces your options. So let's talk through a different way of viewing this stuff. So lifestyle creep versus unintentional upgrading is something I want you to start to internalize and think about, how does this apply to your own life? Lifestyle creep is unconscious spending. And it might be somewhat conscious, but it's just this addition. It's financing the more expensive car because your income's a little bit higher and not really giving it too much thought other than, oh, I can afford the payment. Intentional spending is very different. Intentional spending, intentional spending is very different. This is more values-based spending. It's more in line with the person you are trying to become on a granular level. This is very, very thoughtful. It's not just swiping the card and saying, oops, thought I had money, but I don't. It's very, very different perspective and shift. And that is something I want us all to start to think about, is that intentional spending, values-based spending is what we really should be focusing on, not that lifestyle unconscious spending. So before you make purchases and before you start to add more stuff to your life, here are 4 questions I want you to really ask yourself before starting to add things to your life. I'm talking the services even, where it's like snow removal or lawn care service or having somebody come in and clean your house. Even before you do any services, anything that's going to increase your overall spend per month, I want you to ask these 4 questions. The first, does this make my life easier long term? 2, can I actually afford this? Truly, can I afford this? 3, can I stagger some of the expenses instead of doing everything all at once? If no one saw this, would I still want to purchase this? Am I trying to buy relief or alignment? And lastly, and maybe most importantly, what am I trading off by saying yes to this? At the end of the day, you're allowed to upgrade your life. You just have to be really careful about trying to upgrade everything. Now, if you have found yourself getting to the point where you know you've got some lifestyle creep and you've got to make some changes and you're not quite sure where to start, here are some things to think through, or here is what I would personally do if I were in your shoes and I was trying to fix my life. So if you have found yourself getting into the trap of lifestyle creep and you're trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I prevent this from becoming a bigger issue? Or how do I get out of this? There are lots of steps you can take, and here's what I personally would do if I were in your shoes and I was trying to prevent lifestyle creep from becoming a bigger issue in my life. First, anytime you receive a raise, always increase your savings first, okay? First and foremost, automate it. Get that savings rate increase. That can be additional 401k contributions. It can be an automation to your investment accounts, which if in your 30s, you probably should be doing that, or even just general savings to help you get a good cash cushion in the event of something coming up or having an emergency. It's so nice to have that. But when you get that raise, don't immediately go spend the money. Increase your savings. So you're basically keeping the money in your pocket and allowing it to grow so that you have the luxury of retiring at some point. Okay, I'm going to take a quick pause because this is a real situation that I've came across. There was a couple that reached out to me for potential financial coaching help, and they were amazing and so sweet, and he was getting a well-deserved promotion at work, which is so exciting, right? He's worked there for a long time. He was like pumped. It was going to be a substantial increase, about $25,000 to $30,000 extra per year, which is a lot of money. And the sad thing is right when he was getting to the point where he was waiting for the offer letter, they decided that they needed to get a new car, a new to them car. It wasn't brand new. It was a reliable used car, but they still would have to finance it. So they went out and they stretched their budget a little bit because now on paper, they could afford the payment even more so with the new raise. So they financed the car, and he found out a week after they financed the car that the promotion fell through. Now that freaking sucks, right? That's the worst case scenario, but I wish I could say that was unique. I do see that happen from time to time, and it really is such a bummer. Or you get that raise and you're like, yes, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna take the trip, I'm gonna go out to eat, to celebrate, and then you get your first paycheck and you're like, well, where's my raise? It doesn't seem like it's here. It gives you a couple $100 extra per month. That's the kind of stuff that I want you to think about too, is that until you get that money, don't start to increase your lifestyle, at least at a bare minimum. But if you are going to increase your lifestyle, I want you to increase your lifestyle in the sense of you're putting more money into your investments and your savings, and you're increasing your lifestyle from that perspective. Okay, next up, you have to pick your luxury lanes. My friends, 1 to 3 max. This is just the way it goes. It's unfortunate, but when we all have limited income, we have to also choose limited luxuries. So I don't have the nice new house with this house payment that really keeps me pretty strapped. I didn't choose to go that route. I didn't choose to go buy the brand new car every 5 years. I didn't do any of that stuff because while I would enjoy that, what I know is that that doesn't bring me that much fulfillment. I would like it, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't appreciate luxuries. It's just something where I decided that my luxuries was going to be investing more and having this new identity of I'm an investor and I want to build up my net worth as quickly as I can so I have more time freedom, more financial freedom. That would be the goal. It also was something where I decided that I was going to spend money on travel. Now, I'm not spending money on business class. We talked about that. I wish I could. I just can't get there yet. I've got a lot of points saved up, so I'm trying to get some credit card points to get me to the point where I can actually book that business class. But I do travel fairly frequently and I enjoy it. But my trips for an entire year is very often the same cost as one person's once a year trip. And that was an intentional choice. I didn't want to spend $20,000 on one trip. Instead, I said, okay, well, what if I spend $3,000 here, there, and there and get to take more frequent trips? That was more exciting to me and more in line with my personal values. Another thing that I set a line in the sand for early on is I don't buy coffee out all the time. I rarely even eat out. But when I do like to spend some money on that. So instead of spending it on eating out and coffee, I'd rather funnel that money into groceries so I can have better meals at home, higher quality foods, as I talked about my Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Another thing that you can do to keep lifestyle creep in check is to do a yearly baseline reset. Now, this is a tricky one because it's going to require you to make some really tough calls, but this is looking at your overall lifestyle and saying, how much should I spend on different categories? How much should I spend on transportation? How much was my house? How much was my food? How much was eating out? How much was shopping? How much was travel? How much was my kids' activities? You're starting to look at everything that you spent money on over the course of a year and asking yourself, what can I do to reduce this? When you start to see year over year comparison, I think you start to make decisions differently, but so many of us don't actually have that data to compare because we're not actively budgeting. We're rarely paying attention to our finances, and we often are just like, we looked at our credit card and our bank account, that checks my financial box, which we all know if we listen to this podcast is not the way to go. But for so many people, that data isn't even there because it's not even being tracked. The fourth thing that you can do is start to cap your convenience. Don't necessarily eliminate it, but cap it. Maybe you have a $200 a month allotment for convenience spending. Now that could be your house cleaner, it can be yard care, it can be a laundry service, it can be whatever, grocery delivery. But having that cap that feels realistic in proportion to your income is going to be a good way to go to keep things kind of in check. And then you have to make trade-offs, right? Sometimes it's, I can't do my lawn service this month. I have to go out there and mow my own lawn. God forbid. Like, people act like that's the worst thing in the world. That always cracks me up. So you go out there, you mow your own lawn, and instead of paying for the lawn service, now you have money to afford the house cleaner. That's awesome, right? It's all about trade-offs. And the last thing that you can do to start to prevent lifestyle creep, or at least get it back in check, is to have a future you check. Now, what this means specifically is you're starting to check in with future you. You're saying, okay, in 5-10 years, what would actually make me happy? If I could look back on, give my younger self advice for 5 to 10 years ago, what would I tell myself with my finances? That same advice that you would give your younger self is probably advice that you would give to yourself today. So look at that, ask yourself, what does future you actually want? And start to put that advice into practice, because you truly know what's best for your own life. You know what's going to be in alignment for you. You know what the right thing to do is for your life. We all have the right intentions. Sometimes it's just practicality gets in the way and it gets a little bit tricky. But do that future you check, and that will help you for understanding what you need to be doing to make yourself proud of yourself and feel less stressed later. Okay, so let's start to wrap up this conversation on lifestyle creep. I want you to understand that lifestyle creep is a very normal and real thing. It happens to the best of us, and I want you to start to shift your mindset around it. And instead of unconsciously spending, we want to be intentional and aware and in control of what we bring into our life, because we know when we add something, it's going to bring us additional value because it's directly aligned with our values. And lifestyle creep is really tricky because it is a natural response to the world that we live in. There's a lot of marketing, there's a lot of social media, there's aspirational spending, there's identities. There's so many different factors that are really coming at us all the time. So it is a normal thing. At the end of the day, the world that we live in sells ease and convenience as a necessity, and truly it's not. But we have internalized it, and we've started to shift our narratives where we feel like spending on convenience is just an essential thing that we have to all do. So let's wrap this up with a reflection. I want you to ask yourself, what's one lifestyle upgrade that you have made that you thought was totally worth it and you spend on that and love it? And what's one habit that's not necessarily serving you that you might start to rethink and maybe remove from your life? That is it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, do me the biggest favor and share this with somebody that you think it could help. That's the best way that this podcast gets in front of more people. And I am so grateful for you listening in. I'll see you next week for another episode of the Money Nerds Podcast. Bye.